What in the world did I just listen to? That's what these stories would do to you. You think you understand what's going on until you realize you really don't. They're short, but they really need you to focus. Miss a detail, and you'll miss everything. I don't know why Daddy is always so mad at me. I try hard to be a good girl. I always clean my room and brush my teeth and pray before dinner, but I can never make him happy. Some days he'll come home from work and have a look in his eye. Whenever Mommy sees that look, she sends me to my room, and I don't come out until the next day. Sometimes when I come down, Mommy has bruises, but she always says she had an accident. She has a lot of accidents. I didn't know grown-ups can be clumsy like kids. Last month, I came downstairs and Mommy had bruises on her arms and a red mark on her face like I get when I'm nervous. She said it was an accident, which made sense because the night before I'd heard Daddy yelling and a thump and Mommy crying after. I asked Mommy if Daddy had an accident too, and that's why he was so upset. She looked sad and said that sometimes Daddy gets frustrated and that's why I have to stay in my room, but that he's a good daddy and he doesn't mean it. She said that we know he loves us because we always have food to eat and clothes to wear, and he keeps us around even though he doesn't have to. I always thought daddies had to keep you around. She said the world can be a really hard place. I guess that's true. Sometimes when I do bad at math or Jason Palmer makes fun of me in class, I get frustrated too. And she said that no matter what, I shouldn't tell anyone else about it. What happens at home is nobody else's business. I have to be a good girl and stay quiet. Tonight me and Daddy are home alone. Daddy says Mommy fell and hurt herself and had to go to the hospital, but she's been gone forever. I wish she'd come back. I'm in my room playing, leaving him alone like he said, when there's a loud thud on the door. I get scared and hide in the closet like Mommy always taught me, but I can still hear. There's loud yelling. Daddy doesn't sound happy, not like he ever does, but he sounds even more not happy than most times. Then there's a loud bang, and then another one, and the door slams. I can hear Daddy now. He sounds like he's in pain and he calls my name over and over, asking me to get help. I don't know what to do. His voice is getting quieter and he sounds like he really wants my help. Maybe I should go to the neighbors across the street? But then I remember what Mommy said, and I stay in the closet and don't say a word. I will show him I can be quiet. I'm a good girl. I loved John with all my heart. I'd known the day we met I'd do anything for him. We talked about our goals, and he'd confessed how much he'd always wanted to be a father. Despite my worries, I was determined to give that to him. I will never forget showing him my positive pregnancy test. The look on his face was the first time I was actually excited to be a mother. But the time leading up to bringing our child into the world was miserable. I hated the extra weight I was carrying, my screwed up balance, how much my back hurt. I couldn't get comfortable at night. Eventually, I moved into the guest room for both our sakes, and I got so moody. Sometimes I didn't even want to be around him. There were good moments too, of course. The best part, aside from knowing how happy I was making John, was the friends I made. I joined an online mommy-to-be chat group and met some amazing people. We'd share stories of our lives, our fears, our excitement for the future. It was like we'd known each other forever. But there was one girl we were a little worried about. Mary was young and had a rough home life. Her parents weren't supportive. Her boyfriend had disappeared when she'd gotten pregnant. We all resolved to do everything we could for her. We messaged her every day, reassuring her that she wasn't alone. Most days we managed to keep her spirits up, but sometimes she was depressed whatever we did. We discussed doing more, throwing her a shower, donating baby items she'd need, but since she wouldn't share her location, our hands were tied. Then one day she reached out to me privately. Her parents had kicked her out and she had nowhere else to go. I immediately sent her the address of my family's cabin. It wasn't much, but she could stay there while she figured things out. John was worried about me traveling alone so late in the pregnancy, but when I told him I needed to go help a friend in trouble, he understood. I promised Mary I'd come up as soon as I could. When I got there, she was sitting on the sofa crying. She rushed to hug me in gratitude. I assured her I was happy to help. I poured her some tea and asked about her plans. She said she'd been considering adoption, but because of me, she was leaning toward keeping it. Ironic. Later, I reflected on how hard these last months had been, constantly wearing a fake stomach, feigning doctor's appointments, sending Mary's boyfriend to the afterlife, luring her out here. But as I held my new daughter, freshly cut from the forever slept body that had now served its purpose, I knew it had all been worth it. After all the pretending, John would have a real child, and our family would be complete. Maybe we'd even name her Mary. 3 days ago, my father kissed me goodbye and locked up the house as usual. I busied myself with chores and spent the rest of the day reading. At 5, I made a simple dinner and tidied myself up. Father didn't come home. I figured he had stayed overnight in the city and went to bed before 9. I didn't sleep well. 2 days ago, I spent the entire day looking for the remote to the TV. It's so inconvenient when simple things get lost. I searched under the mattresses and behind the toilet. I tore everything loose before taking a break and having a protein bar. I eventually found it tucked up over the door jamb and had to really strain to get it down, but finally I managed to pry it free. Why was it always the last place you looked? I was exhausted and reluctantly took my medicine. Another night of fitful sleep. Yesterday I slept all day. I couldn't move, I could barely breathe. Had I taken too much medication? I never dosed myself in the past, so I didn't know how much I needed. I got up late and scrounged for food. After a sparse meal, I laid back down, the remote clutched in my hand. Today I drank water even though I don't like to. I must have needed it though, I couldn't stop scooping it into my mouth. My sisters were hard to wake up, so I let them sleep. I finally managed to turn on the TV and flipped around to different stations. After a few hours of endless clicking until I found a channel that had local news. There had been a shooting downtown. A nursery had been vandalized. A riot had broken out at a chain grocery store. I was feeling upset by the bad in the world and was about to turn the TV off when the last story caught my eye. A prominent local doctor unalived in high driving accident, leaving behind wife and 3 daughters. I was shocked to see a picture of my father with a woman I didn't know and 3 girls that weren't me or my sisters. I finally turned the TV off and sat on my mattress. What would I tell my sisters? How would I get them to understand? Without Dad, there was no one to unlock the basement door. I was bustling over the stovetop when he came home. Like always, he ignored me, tossed his briefcase to the side, and headed straight for the fridge to grab a beer. He didn't even glance in my direction. When he asked if dinner was ready, I simply gestured to the timer ticking on the kitchen counter. The meatloaf still needed another 20 minutes. I tried to lighten the mood with a joke, but he brushed it off, muttering that he'd had a long day, and told me to come get him when the food was done. Then he disappeared upstairs, likely to play video games again, leaving me alone in the kitchen with a smile that was beginning to wear thin. Lately, supper seemed to be the only thing he cared about. As long as he was fed, he had no interest in me or anything I had to say. I tried to reach out to him, to get him to talk, to open up about whatever was clearly eating away at him, but he never let me in. Still, I told myself that was all right. When the timer finally rang, I called him down for dinner. I had put my heart into the meal. Roast cauliflower seasoned with lemongrass and shallot, jacket potatoes with garlic confit, and the centerpiece, a perfectly cooked meatloaf made from my own recipe. It was his favorite. I'd hoped he might notice, might appreciate the effort. Instead, he sat down, eyes glued to his phone, and began eating without even glancing at his plate. I tried to make conversation. After about 15 minutes of chewing in silence, I asked him about the food, hoping to spark something, anything between us. He gave me a one-word answer without looking up. I mentioned I had a surprise for him, hoping that might break through the wall he'd put up between us. But he only responded with sarcasm and suspicion, asking if he'd forgotten my birthday. That hurt more than I expected it to. I'd been practicing what I wanted to say all afternoon. I told him I wanted to talk about the baby. The word alone was enough to make him freeze. 6 months ago, I had miscarried at 20 weeks. He had always wanted to be a father, and the loss changed something in him. The doctor said we shouldn't try again. And since then he had refused to speak about it, but I needed to. She had been mine too. He lashed out, just as I knew he would. He said if I couldn't give him a child, there was nothing left to talk about. Then he shoved another forkful of meatloaf into his mouth and suddenly winced in pain, letting out a muffled shout. He'd bitten down on something hard enough to almost crack a tooth. He fished it out, slowly, staring at the object in disbelief. What he held between his fingers was a belly button ring. Small, silver, unmistakable. It was the kind his mistress wore. Ro watched as the horror spread across his face. His hand went to his mouth, eyes wide with something I hadn't seen in months. Emotion. Real, raw, genuine emotion. He asked if this was the surprise, his voice rising in panic. I told him it wasn't. Not really. I was just glad he was finally paying attention. Then I told him the last thing he expected to hear. She had been pregnant.